all that good stuff?
Good to go.
All right. Well, I think we got everybody. I'll just go this a little bit. Cool. Thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks everybody for who's on online. For those of you that are here, we're also I'm being taped apparently. So hi to everybody. My name is Chris Spoo with Double Action Dive Charters. As far as me, I'm a diver. I am one of the crew members on the boat. Yeah, I've been diving for a while. Got certified in '98. Do pretty much everything except teach. So, you know, rec tech, cave, all that kind of stuff. I just never got into the professional side of things. So, but yeah, I'll be sharing a little bit with you guys about the dive charter and kind of generally about diving in the Great Lakes. Realize, especially for people coming in and viewing us from the internet, not everybody's local to us. Not everybody might have a trip to Chicago or to Sand Lake Shores planned, so they might not be able to join us anytime soon. But if they can get out and dive the Great Lakes, all the better. So if we're ready now, we can kind of proceed on here.
All right, Chris, we are good.
All right, excellent. We can continue on to the next slide then. All right, so diving in the Great Lakes. There's diving for any skill level, from not certified, even, I mean, I guess it wouldn't technically be diving, but even not wanting to get into the water, there are wrecks that you can see from kayaks, canoes, westbound boats, that kind of thing. There are wrecks that can be snorkeled. There are wrecks that can be dived within from a just out of class open water diver all the way up to the limits of technical diving, everything in between in the Great Lakes. Yes, it's cold. There's no getting around that, but that ties into the preservation of the wrecks. The cold is trying to think of, you kind of learn to deal with it, how to dress. You're not going to be taking a 3 mil wetsuit out onto the lakes at the beginning of the season. 7 mil dry suit, semi-dry, dry suit, somewhere in that range will keep you fairly comfortable. It's really, all tied back into your total dive time. And just stay within your comfort. Surprisingly good visibility. In every lake, with the exception of Lake Superior, we have zebra and quagga mussels, which are an invasive species, but they also help filter out the water, which has led to some dramatically improved visibility. Again, very well preserved shipwrecks. No sharks, no jellyfish for anybody that might be a little weary of the sea creatures in the ocean, and no salt. You don't need to go rinse your gear because you just rinsed it in fresh water anyway. So that's always nice. The picture is me on the wreck of the Niagara, which is up in Wisconsin. Photo taken by a friend of mine who's a underwater archaeologist with the state of Wisconsin. Go ahead and move on to the next one.
Okay.
All right, a little bit about Hammond. You get a great view of the city. There's no doubts, if you haven't been out on a boat on Lake Michigan off Chicago, just the view is something to behold. And we also do lake tours or river tours and things like that, kind of on request. So again, call us, email us. The worst we'll say is no, but you can always ask. Let me move on to the next slide. All right. Start with the deepest one, at least out of Hammond. Thomas Hume. Thomas Hume's a 131-foot schooner. It was missing for a long time. It hadn't been located until 2003 when A&T recovered the wreck. A&T's done a ton of sonar scanning of the lake bed. Their primary interest were naval aircraft from World War II that were lost in training flights onto the training aircraft carriers that were on the lake during World War II. So in all of the scanning to locate these aircraft, they came across a lot of shipwrecks and have access to far more locations of shipwrecks than we will ever know. The Hume sank with a loss of all 7 hands on board, and it actually just departed Chicago for Muskegon along with the boat, the Rouse Simmons. The Rouse Simmons is the Christmas tree ship that you'll see pop up on shipwreck history sites come Christmas time. Go ahead and move to the next slide here. The Buccaneer. The Buccaneer was a purpose-sunk shipwreck in the area. It was a 100-foot long patrol boat in the Gulf of Mexico and on the Great Lakes, and ended up finishing its career as the Buccaneer, which was a pirate-themed booze cruise on Lake Michigan. They said intentionally sunk. It's in 72 feet of water. That's the depth down to the sand. It's been prepared for divers, so a lot of the hazards that exist in traditional shipwrecks have been removed. Any entanglement hazards, things like that. So limited penetration can be done on this wreck, and this is a fairly popular wreck for divers coming out of Hammond to visit. On to the next one. The Rotarian. So you can't mention anything involving Chicago without somehow tying something into somewhere Al Capone may and or may not have been. The Rotarian was docked at Clark Street on the Chicago River and was a floating speakeasy. The rumor is just like any speakeasy at the time that it was run by Al Capone. I don't know if anybody can actually prove that or not, but that's the rumor. And for a while served as the headquarters of the Chicago Democratic Party. Scuttled in 1931. Some of the interesting things about this wreck is as you swim along the wreck, if you look underneath the boards, you'll find bottles from the Prohibition era. All empty, but they're there. They're under the boards. And there's tons of them. So one thing, speaking of things like bottles, that is a little bit different with Great Lakes diving versus diving in the ocean. All of our wrecks are protected. Nothing is allowed to be taken off of wrecks without permission of whatever state is in control of that wreck, or there are some wrecks where private individuals or companies do have salvage rights to that wreck, and it's been established in court, and they've been able to salvage things from the wreck. So currently, if you were to take something off of a wreck, that would be considered a crime and could be prosecuted as such. So generally, if a captain sees you getting out of the water with something in your hand that belongs on the wreck, they're not going to let you back on the boat until it's either returned or dropped in the water. We would rather not violate the laws. So, whereas with the ocean, you can generally, as long as it's not considered a war grave or something like that, you can generally take items off the boat. Move on to the next one. So, a little bit of fun facts. We have locations of some unnamed wrecks. A couple seasons ago, we actually found a wreck that nobody knew about. We were coming back from a charter, and Nicole, one of our captains, happened to have the side scan sonar turned on. Saw some sort of anomaly as they passed over it. She went back, did another pass, and it looked like something worth revisiting. Put down the GPS coordinates, went back a couple of weeks later, and lo and behold, we found a shipwreck that nobody found. More to the point, Pete found the shipwreck. We just happened to be there to dive on it the first time. But beautiful wreck in relatively shallow water, 30 feet, I believe, if I remember correctly. Big intact anchor, a wheel, which you hardly ever see on a wreck in shallow water, because those are the first things that would get salvaged back in the day. Because what else says shipwreck? What would you rather would you most want to display that said shipwreck would be a wheel. So those a lot of times would go missing pretty quickly. And it's in pieces. It's a bit of a lumber yard on the bottom, but it's.
How old do you guys think it was?
I haven't stayed up with the most recent research because we have had some actual professionals look at it. Certainly from the mid to late 1800s. When it actually went down, I'm not 100% certain. So it is a schooner of some kind. They found the centerboard of the schooner laying there. And some people that know far more about maritime architecture than myself have looked at it. And, so we talked about all these wrecks. One of the things that I volunteer my time to do during the summer is a little bit of underwater archaeology. I generally volunteer with the state of Wisconsin. There's the Underwater Archaeology Society of Chicago does most of the underwater archaeology in the Chicagoland area. Wrecks are found. You gather data on them, try to figure out how long it is, how wide it was, how many masts, what sort of distinct features that wreck had, what cargo might it have been carrying or not carrying. And it's kind of a detective type process in the process of elimination, comparing what the divers see in the water to what historical documentation says is missing. If you find, a ship is carrying coal, or you found a shipwreck that had coal, and there's only 3 ships missing in that area that would have been carrying coal, and start seeing if the dimensions match. And because as nice as it would be to go down and have a billboard on the side that said the name of the ship, a lot of the ships back in the 1800s were straight work vessels and may not have had ornate name boards on the side of them. So, or it might have been something that could have been salvaged. This wreck, we think we're the first ones to have found it, but it's always possible that somebody had found it prior and had it saved and kept secret. Wreck divers, like a lot of explorers, tend to keep things under wraps. It's my find. I want to keep it safe. We've been keeping the location of that one particular wreck kind of under wraps until some documentation of the site can be conducted. And we can make sure that somebody isn't going to go, oh, we got those coordinates. We're going to go get that wheel. We're going to get that anchor off the bottom, and just protect it so the divers can come out and see it. To have that kind of an experience in relatively shallow water, that new divers can come out and see a wheel and see an anchor, and not have to go to a much deeper wreck to see those kind of things. It's nice to have, and we want to keep it in one piece, or well, I guess it's many pieces, but we want to keep the pieces where they're at. UASC, Underwater Archaeology Society of Chicago, like I was saying, they're a volunteer organization. They have a website. They have regular meetings. You get in contact with them. As I understand, they're always looking for people to help, whether that's divers, whether that's people to help to go through archives and look look for the actual data. We've had them out on our boat quite a few times. It is really fascinating things. It is something that the general public can absolutely get involved in. At any level. If you can follow directions and take measurements underwater and do things like that, I am certain that the folks at UASC can find something for you or mentor you until you can get to a point when you can really assist on projects. Last random fact, there's a U-boat, Lake Michigan. Odd thing, I know. Not exactly what you would think would be at the bottom of Lake Michigan. UC-97 was a captured World War I U-boat. It was brought back as a bit of a war trophy. And after the Treaty of Versailles, it needed to be destroyed. So it was brought out in Lake Michigan, and it was sunk by a Coast Guard vessel. Can't remember the name of the vessel off the top of my head, but it was actually the SS Eastland, which turned over in the Chicago River, killing hundreds of people. That boat, once it was righted and salvaged, was turned into a Coast Guard vessel and was then used to sink the UC-97. So we move on to the next. Here's the U-boat down here in this picture. Yeah, toured the Great Lakes. USS Wilmette. That's the name of the vessel that sunk it. And the exact location is unknown to us. A&T Recovery knows where it is. There's a desire by one of the people that runs A&T Recovery to do a bit of a Project Azorian type thing and raise the U-boat. Not sure of all the logistics that would be involved, but it is at a from what has been gathered, it is at a fairly significant depth. So it would be a bit of a project to do, but nothing's impossible with enough money and time. So we'll move on to the next slide. All right, your captain in Hammond. There's a few captains. Keith Pearson's been the primary captains in Hammond for quite a while. Commercial diver, works as salvage and recovery diver with A&T Recovery, doing recovery on aircraft, and previous president of Underwater Archaeology Society of Chicago, and holds a 50-ton captain's license and has over 40 years of boating experience. That number should probably be raised because I made this presentation originally a couple of years ago. So definitely a lot of knowledge and a lot of seeing how wreck diving and diving in general has evolved over the years. Keith has story upon story upon story about wreck diving in the Chicago area. Move on to the next one. All right, Fort Sanilac and Harbor Beach. I cannot speak firsthand about them because I haven't made it over there myself to do any diving. You still do have shipwrecks for all levels, but there are more wrecks in Sanilac, Fort Sanilac, and especially in Harbor Beach that are at a technical level. There's our boat over there, the go-between. It's both the go-between and Sequest. Both are larger boats. You have plenty of room. You have a marine head. There's a bathroom on the boat. There's a spot to sit down and relax. It's not your standard six-pack wreck diving boat. We're kind of squashed in and hoping you don't have to use the bathroom sometime between when you leave or get back, or when you get in the water at least. So move on to the next. Go through some of the wrecks that are here. Some of the popular sites: the Regina, the long 250-foot long freighter, cargo of whiskey and ketchup. So I think for a good time, I guess. See the prop and the rudder. Penetration opportunities for those that are trained to do penetration dives. A wreck where you can actually see the name on the side of it. North Star, Mary Alice B is a very popular wreck. Colonel A.D. Williams and the Eliza Strong. So, and this is just a cross section of the wrecks that we visit or can visit. If you go to our website, doubleactiondivecharters.com, you can see a full list of what of what we have to offer as far as shipwrecks. Get a chance to move to the next slide and go to some pictures. Here's the Regina, the older freighter, lost in the Great Storm, November 10th through the 13th of 1913, along with 7 other steel ships. Major storm brought down multiple large vessels. So when people chuckle at the Great Lakes, no, it's just a lake. Well, yeah, it's a lake, but it has weather like an ocean, and sometimes worse because the weather pops up faster. And unlike the ocean, where you have long periods between waves, the period between waves on the Great Lakes is often a whole lot shorter. So you're just, wrecks, I should say wrecks, ships are just getting pounded on the surface. So people coming out doing wreck diving in the area, when your captain cancels because of the weather, I know it's frustrating because I've been canceled on myself. They're doing it for good reason. We don't want our boat to become another site for other dive boats to visit. Ideally, at least. So, next. Mary LSB. Really pretty old tug. I went down 75, 92 feet of water, up in the advanced open water level. Move on. One of the wrecks that's probably at the top of my list personally, the Daniel Morel. It's a 586-foot steel freighter, broken in half. The 2 pieces are 5 miles apart. They're, you can't go, just swim across a break and go to the other side of the wreck. Depths 200 to 220, so definitely in that trimix range. There was one survivor, Dennis Hale, who wrote a book about his experience. Spent 36 hours on a life raft in storm conditions that just brought down a nearly 600-foot steel freighter. So I've not read Dennis Hale's book, but that's on my list as well. Stack of other books I need to get through. Photo here by Jeff Lindsay. Look at Jeff's photos. Take a look. He's got some beautiful photos. In the Morel engine room here, you've got the telegraph. You can still read it completely. There's a workshop that still has mason jar organizers with screws and fasteners in it. Every photo I've seen of this wreck just makes it look incredible. One of those things that whether you're starting out open water, regardless of where you are in your dive career, it's one of those that you look at and go, all right, 200 feet, what do I have to do to get there? And it's, you pick that one wreck that's kind of I want to train to go do that. This is one of those good wrecks to look at. I want to train to do that if you're at all interested in tech. So, and we would be happy to set up a charter to the Morel. He said usually stuff out of Harbor Beach is not listed on the website, but if you call or send an email, we'd be happy to take people over there. The Detroit, this is just a drawing. The photos really do it more justice. The side wheel steamer, the side wheels are still standing. And it's another wreck that's just absolutely beautiful. The bell was stolen, unfortunately. I don't remember the exact depth. I want to say it's in the technical range, but I'm not 100% certain on that. And your captain over here is Sean Crowell. He is an active tech diver, rebreather diver. When he's not captaining, he's diving and exploring the wrecks in the area. And 50-ton Coast Guard captain's license, 15 years of experience, and instructor for the 100-ton captain license course. So, another very experienced captain, as well as somebody who's a wealth of knowledge with diving these wrecks and knows the layout of the wrecks, has been on all of them, and give you a good rundown of the wrecks before you go down and dive. So. All right, so that's the last slide I have. Probably have some questions online as well as some questions here. And seeing as you guys are here, what kind of questions do you have?
So we have a question. Do you have to wear a dry suit when you go out to these shipwrecks?
All right, do you have to wear a dry suit? No, you absolutely don't. It's going to be personal preference and whatever you are comfortable diving. If you would, you can absolutely dive a 7 mil wetsuit or semi-dry, I would say if anybody's doing any technical diving where you're going to have a decompression obligation, that a dry suit is definitely something that I would consider necessary personally. But for recreational diving, you can absolutely dive a wetsuit with no problem.
All right, we have an online question.
Yeah.
What is the minimum number of divers on a charter?
Maximum number on the charters is 16. The current minimum, I believe, is 6. I would have to talk to Mike or one of the captains to see what it is currently. The same thing, if we're getting a private group together, say I wanted to get a group together from the firehouse to go diving, if I round up 6 people, that's enough to get the boat out, and then the remainder of those spots would then be open to anybody else that might want to sign up. If you want to book the entire boat, we can do that as well, and you just reach out to us and we can come up with a price to book the whole boat and make it a completely private charter as well.
I got another question from Jason Moore. What is the average visibility?
Average visibility is going to vary a bit based on storms and depth as well. Looking at the Thomas Hume at 150 feet, pretty reliably 75 to 100 feet of visibility. There have been times when it's less than that for whatever reason. The shallower wrecks, it varies a little more. I would generally say on a bad day, 20 feet, on a good day, 60 to 80 feet, depending on the wreck. The shallower the shipwreck, the more likely the visibility could be decreased. We can never make a promise because there's definitely been days you get down on a shipwreck and it's 5 feet. But more often than not nowadays, you do have pretty decent visibility. At least as good, if not better, than the local quarries.
All right, I have one from Ed. My son and I will be receiving our open water certification at the end of May. He's 14. Will there be any wrecks I could dive with him within his diving depth?
Absolutely. I'm not a dive instructor, so off the top of my head, I don't know the depth limitation, but I can tell you 40. Okay. Good. There's experts in the audience that can tell me that. Thank you. Absolutely. We do have shipwrecks in the 40-foot range. The material service barge would be one. It's not a long ride out of Hammond, and it's a barge, but it was a self-unloading barge which would unload its cargo, uh, automatically. It has a kind of a conveyor belt type system on it, and it's a fascinating wreck to see. And it's well within that 40-foot depth limit. I want to say the deck's at something like 25 feet deep.
All right. We have another one from Divers Down. Mark wanted to bring a couple new divers up. What would be a couple good wrecks to do?
Material service barge would be one good wreck. Trying to think off the top of my head what's close. Yeah, the inland steel barge is close in. The Louisville is pretty close in, and not incredibly deep and not a complicated dive to do. There's those would be some easy dives for a newer diver.
Right, we have a few more questions. What is the best month to dive?
Well, that depends on that's going to be personal.
You talking warm? Talking cold?
Yeah,
Visibility?
if you want a nice thermocline and warmer weather, end of the season, September, you're probably going to get the best experience when it comes to warmth. As far as visibility, the cooler months tend to be better. So earlier in the season, or at the end of the season, water's cooled off, but the visibility tends to be a little bit better then. So it's going to depend on your own personal taste and opinions on. A lot of it depends on how cold you're willing to be.
Anyone else from the audience?
While you're diving, do you guys see a lot of fish?
So as far as fish and aquatic life that we see on wrecks, not a ton. You would definitely see more aquatic life in the quarries. Every once in a while you'll see some. Gobies, another invasive species, they like to hang out on the wrecks. So you'll see them. Alewives, burbot. Burbot are kind of, they're so slow moving, half the time you could reach out and grab them if you want until you spook them and they take off. But, generally you're not seeing big schools of fish. Every once in a while there are, but I've definitely had more dives where I have not seen many fish at all than ones where I've. Something that I didn't hit on would be, if I already prefaced that I'm not an instructor here, it would be training for wreck diving. There are wreck diving courses offered. Dive Right and Scuba offers wreck diving classes that I know they have several coming up. I think it's May, June, and July.
And August.
There's wreck diving classes being offered on Double Action Dive Charter's boats. So you can come out and experience, take your wreck diving training and experience, take your class on a real shipwreck. The Buccaneer that I showed earlier is one of the wrecks that will end up being visited there. There's a wreck diving course. There's a limited penetration wreck diving course that trains you a little bit on how to go into how to penetrate wrecks, a little bit within some safety limitations. And then there's an advanced wreck diver course that's in the technical training realm, and that's how to do full on. It's closer to cave diving training than it is an open water style wreck class, where you're running lines and using redundant equipment and doing that sort of planning. So.
All right, we got one last question. Recommended equipment, camera, SMB, buoy, etc.
Recommended equipment, we do have a list online because invariably I'll forget to say something. Equipment in good working order. You can always rent equipment, not through us at Double Action, but from Dive Right In or your local dive shop if you're coming in from somewhere else. Good equipment that you've checked over, is in working order. Don't grab the stuff out of the garage. It's been sitting for 10 years and you think it might still contain air, maybe, I don't know. Come with good equipment. SMB is good and a safety spool, just in case for whatever reason you have to come do an ascent off the bottom where you can't follow up the mooring line if for whatever reason a mooring breaks or the boat has to untie for some reason. If you have a camera, you are more than welcome to bring a camera. If it's your first time wreck diving or you're kind of inexperienced, I would say leave the camera at home and get the experience diving. And while you're down there, come up with a plan of what you want to film. And next time you bring the camera, once it's not all new to you, the last thing you want to do first time out doing a wreck dive off a boat is bring a bunch of equipment that you've never used before. So be comfortable with your equipment. Diving off the boat's not where you want to come with your brand new dry suit if you've never dived a dry suit before. It's not where you want to come with, first time diving a set of doubles, first time diving side mount. I don't know who's watching this video online. We can get into the, go round and round about side mount off of boats, but it is allowed off of Double Action's boats. It's just, cumbersome on a boat. Great in the water though. But yeah, just trying to think of anything else. It's good to have some sort of signaling device if you were to come off the, if you were to surface away from the boat. So whether you had a whistle or a mirror, an SMB that you can wave, some way of alerting the crew that you are on the surface and need them to come get you versus you being able to get back to the boat.
Okay.
A question in the
Can we do multiple dives?
Yes. Yeah, you can do multiple dives. Generally, the way it's set up is there's 2 dives.
And do we bring our own tanks? Or?
Yes, you would bring your own. Bring them or rent them from a dive shop. But all we supply at Double Action is we're in essence a taxi out to the dive site. We're going to take you out to the dive site. We're going to find it. We're going to hook into the mooring, and we're going to tell you the pool's open. You go in, follow the mooring line down, have a wonderful dive, come back in one piece, and we'll take you back. Generally speaking, unlike some charters, when you go like to the Caribbean and stuff like that, we don't have a dive master giving underwater tours or that kind of thing. So it's a little bit different than charters you might have been on in the Caribbean, but still it's similar. But we're not a full service dive shop. We don't really have any infrastructure at Hammond or at Port Sanilac. We don't have a dive shop in the out back behind, or the boat's not sitting out back behind a dive shop or something like that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's just the boat.
All right. So we're going to announce the winner from online.
All right, online winner.
Online winner is Denby Snell.
Denby Snell,
Denby
congratulations.
Snell, congratulations. On Facebook, Denby Snell will be reaching out to you via Facebook. Thank you so much for joining us live. And then in the store, I'm just gonna put a number. Number is Ryan O'Connor. Ryan O'Connor.
Ryan.
Sweet. All right, our in-store winner. One of them, at least. And then we got one more. Who is this? Rob Orsborn, you won! Yay! Awesome.
Look forward to seeing everybody out on the boat.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Chris. We're going to be ending the live feed now.
All
Thank
right,
you for
thank you.
the participants, and we'll see you on the boat.